So there's so much information, and Xavier, you said this week. There's so much information coming at us. Some of you guys may not be online, but if you get on there, you get on YouTube, you can just type in whatever subject you're interested in, and I mean, there's tons of it, on spirituality, okay? There's people finding each other, and maybe it's because, I don't think so, but maybe it's because I'm more open than I've ever been. It's kind of like when I taught on the Merkaba. I mean, this is an ancient Egyptian word that's describing your whole being, your whole body, which is light, spirit, and physical body. And I had somebody come the next week, and they saw it on Facebook, and they couldn't believe it. But that's because as Christians, we didn't step outside of what the Christian terms. As soon as you said something that was outside of a Christian term, they'd say, oh, that's Buddhism, right? And you have to get back in your lane. And so those of you guys that are digging, you realize we are in an age of information. Some of it's amazing. Some of it maybe not so amazing. But we are learning as a people, you are learning to listen and hear. And you can be led by love. Now, this is the tricky part in my life, all right? So I'll be led, I'll feel like I'm supposed to read something, or I feel like I'm supposed to watch something, or begin to pull some information in. If I start feeling panicked, don't watch it, whatever, I have to sit with it. Because neutrality comes first for me in order for me to hear and see. Because if you've been raised in a culture, a certain religion, not just Christianity, but a certain religion, or even if you weren't in church, you guys, I wasn't raised that much in church. It wasn't until I was an adult, but it's in our culture, okay? And you start hearing something that's outside of what you were taught, the first thing that happens is a trigger. So you'll feel panic. So the first thing I do is I sit with that panic. I can't say it's discernment. I have to sit there for a minute, because before I would call suspicion discernment, because I'm charismatic. Yeah. So everything had a Christian term. I used to joke about this when this one guy came to our house, and he liked Josie. When she was in college. And I said, let me tell you how Christian guys are. I don't know if it was any of you guys. But instead of saying, man, I think you're really hot, I'd like to take you on a date, they say, I feel like the Lord has given me and they make up all this nonsense of we went on one mission trip, and this is true. We had 5 girls tell us how God told them that was their husband and confirmed it. And it was all this language. I'm like, oh, what happened to you? And he didn't marry any of them. There was one girl, though, on the trip that he did marry, and God also told her, but she didn't tell anybody. Like, good on ya. Katie and Will, now they have 3 kids, and they've traveled with us and stuff. So we turn everything into this spiritualism. So first thing when I feel the trigger, I don't say that's not peace. Okay? I don't judge it yet. I'm reading a book. I'm watching something that I maybe felt like I should watch. In a conversation, I have to recognize if it's a trigger, because the voice that's within us doesn't speak from the energy of panic or fear. So when you're being led by that voice, even if there's a fire in the house, even if it's an emergency, even if something's big, you'll be led out by peace, okay? Even if it's in a dire situation. So I first sit with it, and I have to discern if that's a trigger, and then I begin to listen. And the word even born again, it was an idiom, and it meant to start over. Like, if you're going to come work in my kitchen, I just hired you. You're a chef. I know you think you know a whole lot because you've cooked for years. But if you're going to come, I want you to forget everything so I can teach you in this way. That's what it meant to be born again. So when the trigger hits, I'm not saying, oh, that's not peace. Because people say that all the time. I don't have peace about that. Well, you don't have peace about it because you've been taught one way. Listen, guys, one of the greatest ways, and you guys that are not from the U.S. can say amen, or if you've traveled overseas, one of the greatest ways to awaken or broaden the way you think is to travel. It's not because even with our opinions on culture and how things should be done. We're the most benevolent nation, and we've sent missionaries all over the world, but we discipled them in the American way. And so they had their own culture, and we would condemn their culture because it wasn't biblically correct or whatever, and we'd bring them into what we were taught. So first you sit with it, and then you kind of come up higher. Like you're okay either way with the outcome, and you're creating a space just like being born again where you can hear clearly, and you sit with that. I'm telling you that because I'm talking about an inner walk and how I knew that God was leading me, that God in me was leading me and expanding me, but I was put in situations that were outside of Christianity, right? You guys remember when I told you I went and I was doing yoga. I know that this is sad if you were never in Christianity, but you're so taught all these things are wrong, right and wrong, right and wrong, right and wrong. So I'm doing yoga. I don't care what this pose is or what God they say. I mean, I know who's in me. I know the creator, but I'm sitting there and the whole time, especially up front, my mind's mocking it. So I'm sitting there with the decision of expansion while my mind's still mocking it. Because your mind has been programmed to think within the culture, within the religion, within the construct. And so then, this is what's funny, that my higher self, if you want to say that, or my awareness, whatever, I'm able to watch it and laugh at my mind. Laugh at the fear. Haven't you guys ever had a fear and you're able to look at it and you know it's nonsense, because fear isn't rational, mostly. But you still feel it. There's not a monster in the closet. You just watched a scary movie. You know that there's not anybody outside the window, but you still feel the fear. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. You come to a neutral space so you can begin to watch over your life, experience it without judging it. I'm not saying don't be afraid. I mean, probably one of the worst things to do if you have a little 4-year-old and they think they're terrified is just tell them don't be afraid and send them to bed. You walk them through, you show them that there's nothing under the, right? And so it's learning to be really patient, sit through the triggers so you can get to the bottom of what truth is and what's unfolding in your life. And there's an expansion happening if you'll allow it. And the more you allow it, the faster you get to go. And we're in a shift. We're in this space right now in time that it's incredible that we're here. It's incredible. My prayers used to be, and you guys will remember this, I would say it at God's house a few years ago. I'm so thankful for what we see. You guys remember the rest? And what we're willing to see. And I was saying that over myself. What I can see and what I'm willing to see. Because here's what I promise you. Take this home if you don't take anything else home. What you see is what you're willing to see. So if there's things you can't see, there's already maybe blinders up. It's causing you not to be willing to see it. You got to get looser gooser, right? It's like you hold truth lightly in your hand. Remember I said it's like mining for gold, okay? I even got the bucket, and you get down, you get in the water, and you mine. Let the rocks fall. That means when I'm in a conversation, when I'm walking with somebody, when I'm listening to something, when I'm reading a book, I don't have to go, no, because there might be gold in it. I'm not going to throw the whole pan out. I'm going to shift. Because all I'm responsible for is what's being said to me, the voice in me, the expansion in me. All you're responsible for isn't more knowledge, like panic, I got to get more. It's your expansion. And so I can easily get into panic. Not like people out there know, but because there's so much information. And listen, guys, this is how you tell me if you've lived like this. So this is how I feel like we've lived. This is the irresponsible child. Well, it must be true because this person thinks it's true, and I see how they operate in their life. Or it must be true because this person and this person and this person all agree that it's true. And so it's kind of like you're looking at what truth is and how do I follow truth? Right? I understand that there's fruit, okay? But the maturity that's coming to us is we don't follow truth, we are truth. It's a trust within. It's not looking which way do I go, which way do I go? You're saying this, you're saying this, okay? That's the adolescent. That's the child. I'm looking for who can I trust out there. I had an encounter when I was in Ecuador. And Darren was in a few of the encounters. And but I knew that it's a vision, it's a part where I had a level of trust for this person. okay? And he offers me his arm, and right here, I knew, no, right? And I knew I needed to trust in here. It was a shift of government. It was a shift of government, that you're not looking to follow somebody. And this is why the old system has come down and has to continue to come down, is like there's nowhere to if you're going to follow me, like that's crazy. Like we're moving with the wind, okay? And the Sharara, the truth, the life of God is inside of you. So you can, all this is anytime, even back in the day, you guys, I remember when God told us he's taken out the middleman. That was probably in 2012. Of course, I'm so violent in the way I think. I'm thinking there's a sniper, like this is going to be an awesome thing. Like the man in the pulpit that you're not allowed to question, right? And the government, and I'm above you. And I remember when this was prophesied, I'm taking out the middleman. I'm like, yes. Because, we all blame that guy for the revelation that was sucked, right? But when the middleman gets taken out, guess who you have to rely on? Right here. You are the hero. And you are growing. And you've got to push that away. You've got to push who do I follow away. And in that part of that process, you feel very vulnerable. You will feel fear. You will. You will feel, because of the culture that we've been raised in and the trigger, how many of you guys thought, am I losing my mind? Am I hearing correctly? Especially, and this is what God will make sure that you can't find anyone that agrees with you. You know what I mean? You're telling somebody something that's powerful, and they're looking at you like you are out of your mind. Maybe they're not. Maybe they have gas, their stomach hurts, but you get to receive it like you're an idiot, and it's all part of your growth. It's all part of your growth. Because seriously, what's missing in the earth is what's in you. It's not for us to continue. Breck and I went to a library yesterday. It's beautiful. It's a theological library. It has over 100,000 books in it. And I don't know. I'm kind of a nerd like that. I just kind of want to stand there like, but then I get overwhelmed. I'm just thinking, oh my God, if I read one page of every book, it would take me years. And that's 100 pages a day. I think I would last 3 days. Because there's no flow. You're reading one page, But you walk in this much information and you're like, where do you start? And we're talking about theology. We're talking about scriptures. We're talking about, and the whole thing, even as I'm just taking it in and the day we live in, and there's so much information coming and what is right, if you just get Gaia TV, everyone out there, just get Gaia TV. Learn that you're going to learn how not to judge. You're just going to listen. And then you're going to see some really intelligent people that believe some really insane things that you were taught that were insane. And then you just go, what if 30% is true? What if 20%? You know what I'm saying? And you just expand. You let your mind mock it. And you expand. You laugh at your mind. So as I'm in this space and I start feeling this panic, like what's correct? I'm brought back to the thing that started everything in my life from the beginning. And I felt very depressed. And I used to tell my mom, I need a counselor. I just knew something was missing in my life. And I went through a meeting. Some of you guys have heard the story. It wasn't at a church. It was at a Votech. It was at a school. Norman Gordon was his name, a powerful man of God. I later learned about him. And I have no idea what he said. I did not care. And my sister said, go up. They were praying for people at the end. So this is me. I'm in high school. I just know something's missing. Basically, I was dead inside. And I think I was in the 8th grade. And I walk up, and he lays hands on me, and I'm just, and a weird language comes out of me, and I fall backwards. And I was never the same. It wasn't like everything was answered, but there was something awakened in me. And it's love. It was purpose. It's the presence of God. It was an eye-opening that, oh my gosh, that I am worthy, I have purpose. And so in this day, like all this information coming and what is truth, and you kind of want to go back, like which direction you go, it's such a joy to me to know and to continually remember that I just get to keep going back to that right there. It says in our Christian construct, through some scriptures. It says that God is love. Allah is the word for God in Aramaic. It means the absolute only being. There's only one creator of everything, okay? I'm calling him the circular one. That's what I'm calling him, you know. I don't believe that God has a name. I believe that every name is a description of his nature. I believe every culture has come up with different names. I mean, how do you name the one that's expanding the life force that's in everything? How do you name that? How do you nail it down to a word as a form, you know? The nameless God. Just that's enough to be offensive to Christianity because he has a name, whatever. So God just keeps expanding. Well, it says Allah, the absolute only, is hube, which is the Aramaic word for love. We translate it as love. Love's kind of a weak word for us because we love everything, you know. It meant to set a fire, to kindle a fire. It's a picture of someone very purposefully sparking a fire, maybe rubbing sticks together, okay? So they're trying to describe who Allah, the absolute creator, is one that sets a fire and intentionally flames that fire. So what is fire? Fire is energy. It's a force, you know. This is somebody that wrote it down, and they're trying to describe that Allah, the creator that continually expands, is hube. It's like fire. And I'm going to touch on this in a minute, but you guys know in the Song of Songs, when I got a hold of that, you know, I hadn't read the Bible, but I started reading the Song of Songs, and I started every translation I could bring in. I'd get books on it. You guys that don't know, it's a love story. And it's really funny. If you Google it, you'll get all these opinions. Some people are like, it is like biblical pornography. I got that one today. One is the 5 myths about the Song of Songs. And it goes in, it only talks about physical encounters twice, and it breaks down because people made it all about like physical encounters. But it's about a beloved and her lover, okay, when you read it. So I would read all about it, and I understood that it was about me and Christ, me and Jesus at the time, you know, and that love would begin. So God is love. The Creator is love. There's a force. There's a dance. There's a beauty. We know that Allah, the absolute only, the Creator, is light, enlightenment. There's already enlightenment in me. It's the light. God is in within every cell of our being. I'm already fully enlightened. I'm not becoming enlightened. I just wasn't aware. That word means inner light. It means revelation. There's things that you know, but we've been programmed to live from a darkened mind. Someone's been pulling the strings, and we've lived really small. God is light. God is life. Haye, that's what that one is. Nura is light. Haye, it means force. It's a force behind. I like this term. It's animation. Everything is living. Everything that was created is living. This is what the Native Americans understood this, or Native people, indigenous people. They would look at a plant. It literally says in the scripture that there's enough God in creation that you could just rapture you. Like, whoa, you don't even have to read about it. In fact, it's kind of messed us up because we did, you know? But you could just look at a baby, and I was talking to Clay this week, and he asked, what do you think about this? You know, more information, which I do believe that they are real, okay? Because all these different things are being taught, and extraterrestrials, and all these beings, and people are learning all this stuff, and it's amazing. And I said, when you get off into this, I sent him a couple books if he wants to listen to. But Sheila, go back to the baby. I go back to the life force. I go back to who Allah, who the Creator is, when I need to. Because my mind will begin to panic on what is true. Because we've been programmed to find a doctrine. To find people we agree with, it has to be doctrinal. But that's not what family is. That's not what love is. I mean, if you guys should eat dinner at my family's table. Everybody has their own opinions about everything, okay? But we're family, and we love. That's what family is. We're connected by the same spirit. So when it said to even come together and agree, it was nothing about doctrinally. Man did all of that. So the life force, the animation that's within us is God. I've been in meetings, God is in this room, you know. Yeah. Yeah, he is. Yeah, she is everywhere, within every cell of our being. So I've just been meditating on some of this in my heart, because it makes me excited again, and that we can follow life. Whatever you're being taught, It's okay. Whatever you're reading, it's okay. But when you start getting into this, into your head on which direction, pull back. For me, I look at a baby, or looked at a hand. The fact that there's only one thumbprint, like yours, it blows my mind. Have you guys ever just sat and thought about that? Like there's millions and millions of people. Like somebody did that. Somebody put a signature on you. Wow. That's the creator, the expansion. That's what's expanding in us. And I know that sounds so simple, but it doesn't mean don't get the information. But every information, even miracles and power and all of these things that we see that are coming at you, how to make this work and how to make this work. At the end of the day, whether my life ended up being beautiful or not, I'd like to have a good time here, all right? I'd like my life to work out. But if it doesn't, I still want to live out of my purpose. I still want to leave a deposit in this earth in this short period of time. And so I look at Joni, I look at your children, I look at you guys, and that's our why. That's why we keep going. That's why we keep growing and allow this expansion. So you guys, the young, you guys aren't going to have to break. Look at this one. You guys remember her just singing and prophesying? Like, you won't have to break through in your mind the things that you guys had to break through, or the things your parents may never broke. I don't know. But, that becomes our why. So let me tell you this, and I'll finish, because this I'm just starting on this. How many of you guys, anyone who's not familiar with the Song of Songs? Anybody? Not? A few of you? You got to get it. It's beautiful. Okay. You're not? The Song of Songs? Okay. You'll love it. It's okay. I wasn't either. It's no movie. It's not a movie. Yeah. It's the Christian porn movie. That's what I said earlier. It's in the Old Testament. It's actually it's poetry, and it really was a meditation. It's a love story, okay? And Christians got so bent out of shape and loved it and hated it, but it wasn't even until the last 20 years that they could really accept it in Christianity. Now, not it with the Jewish, what is it called, Midrash? When they studied things through Midrash, it means to inquire, to examine, to uncover the depths of the inner meaning with sacred Hebrew texts. It's not an intellectual exercise. So this book, what they called the Song of Songs or the Song of Solomon, was poetic, and it wasn't until the last 10, 15, 20 years where they had books that came out on it, okay? So I was thinking today, and I pulled up an old song. You guys will remember this song, set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for your love is as strong as death, jealousy as fierce as the grave. Do you guys remember those lyrics in a song? So I'm thinking about love today, right, in here. Like, what is love? It's jealous as the grave. I get that. Like, it's coming for all of you. This is someone trying to explain what the nature of God. You may not have an absolute name. I'm not going to be able to nail this down. I'm going to spend the rest of the days of eternity. It's unfolding who you are, who Creator is. This is why I'm alive, is to know you and to love you and to interact with you and to create with you. And so I can't nail it down right now. I'm not so ignorant that I would think I could nail it down right now. And I wouldn't want to. I've said this to you guys before. You don't stand at the altar and then wonder how it's going to end. But that's how we've lived our Christian walk. Well, how's this going to end? Right? Give me how it's going to play out. No, it's an adventure begins. The adventure begins. And that's it right now. When you begin to get awakened to the God within every cell of your being, the truth of who you are, the adventure begins. Joy begins. Peace begins. Even when we're talking about the chart of consciousness, okay? Neutrality is key. You've got to come to a space of neutrality. Underneath neutrality, and I have these printed out if you guys want to look at it. This is in your life. First, it's going to take courage. You move past courage and breaking out of the constructs, and you begin to live from a higher space of neutrality. Neutral to how this earth is being governed. It'll feel like all of a sudden you don't care because you've been trained to pick a side. But you become, like Eckhart Tolle, more aware. You come up higher. You get to a neutral space. from there, you start just growing. And Dr. David Hawkins puts love at like 500. It's pretty high up there. But once you begin, and every part of your life is, here, I'll read it to you. Every part of your life begins to be governed by love, okay? It is the beginning of revelation. Dang. You can't even see until you get there. You can't even begin to see. It's when, and this is what I heard about 3 months ago. I heard Spirit tell me for my daughters is show them how to live from the heart. And I've preached it, and I've said it, and I've encouraged it with them. But then there's areas of fear that I haven't lived from the heart. And when you get to that level, when you begin to get the expansion of love, you fully live from your heart. In other words, you get to be your full expression in the earth, your full expression. That's what we're longing for. The God we're longing for is Claudia's full expression. When you were singing and asking God to come, it's for Claudia's full expression. It's God in form right here to fully express. There's an expression that you have that when you come into this understanding, the more you release the fear and you come into this dance, it's exactly what the earth needs. You don't even have to go and like serve them soup. It may not be that. You don't have to do a service the way we were taught to just be benevolent all the time. You just are fully becoming who you are, and it's you that the earth is longing for. Isn't that what the scriptures were even said? That the earth is crying out for what? The sons. What is that? The earth is just longing for us to know who we are. The love that begins to flow in us, okay? So Dr. David Hawkins says when you get to that level of love, it's one nature. This is when Yeshua said, me and my Father are one. I don't do anything unless I see him do it. This man was giving an explanation of what it looks like to operate as God. It was never supposed to be separate from us. He's showing us in our Christian construct what your life looks like to operate as God. Not to wear a bracelet and try to remember back and do the things Jesus did, but to fully become aware of who you are. And you won't be Jesus, you're going to be Claudia. It's awesome. This is who we are, you guys. When you get to this place, there's only flow. Your brain begins to change. Get this. Your brain will begin to transmute darkness into light. Things that are happening in your life, you know that love is expanding in you when you're taking a negative and it's literally in your being, you're transmuting it into light, into a positive. There's no victim thinking anymore. You're not even trying to overcome it. You know that you're beginning to understand that I am God in form. You better thank God I'm in the earth. You know what I mean? Oh, thank me. I'm here to transmute evil. Y'all, in the middle of what we feel like is such darkness, because we're hearing all this stuff politically and all the stuff of the airwaves, people are waking up. There's light that's happening. In fact, what we see that is so dark is coming because of people waking up. When you turn on the light, what do you see in a dirty room? You see the dirt. And this is not a time for us to go, oh my God, did you see how dirty all these governments are? They always were dirty. In my own life, all of a sudden, if you're seeing all the flaws in your own life, and it's not for you to judge it and feel condemned, the light is coming on in you. It's pushing that stuff out. If you start panicking and thinking, I'm not changing because I can see this. No, thank God you can see it. Yes, you've been really selfish and lived in this cycle. You don't have to try to overcome it anymore. You get to transmute it with, it's never who you were. You never were that. Okay, you see that shift? That's why neutrality is key, because you were taught to condemn something, and every time you condemned them, you sent that part of you back to the corner. And there's no freedom in the corner. There's no freedom in the corner. So it's okay if you see these issues in your life as you're realizing the realization that love is expanding. And it's you. It's you. Man, we've been so framed, and this is what that weekend's about. This is who we are. This is what we're going to continue to do. But I'm not against Christianity. I don't consider myself a Christian. It's too small of a word, okay? I'm the essence of God in form, you know, and I'm only in this form right now. We're going to change forms, and we're going to continue to be the essence of God. All right. But we've been so trained to stay condemned and to stay in this one space. And it can't hold you. It can't hold you. And as this expansion is happening, you guys, the difference with us that we're going to do as a people is when you come out of an abusive relationship or a controlling religion, sometimes you need to get upset right away. How many of you guys have seen lies and you just got really mad that you believed lies? Okay? That's part of the process. I get it. But if you're still mad, then you're pushing against something which is a negative energy. Okay? So you're in a negative relationship, you're controlling religion, a construct, okay? Once you begin to get healed or whatever, you got to let it go and get neutral. I look at my life and I'm like, did it take all of this to get here? Apparently it did. Apparently it did. I used to say prayers like, gut me like a pumpkin. Apparently it did, right? And so in it, as we are expanding this culture, we're not pushing against anything. A wounded person pushes against something. That's why we have 44,000 different Christian denominations and growing. Pick a side, pick a side, pick a side. Make a decision, make a decision, make a decision. But there's a new people on the earth. And they're spiritual, and they just want to float. They want to blow with the wind, and people are trying to nail them down, and we're not sure what we believe. We're not sure what our doctrine is, but we're sure of the voice that's within us, that's love. We're learning to be sure what peace is. We're learning to go, your mind going crazy, but I don't know. I feel like I'm supposed to go this direction. And you're in the space, your mind's going crazy, and you're able to be neutral, and you're in this space, and you begin to experience the expansion of God. And I just see, I don't know, I can just see this picture of just this new breed of people that's in the earth. There's a lot of spiritual people. A lot of the things the first 2 years after Darren transitioned, a lot of these things that we're reading were not written by Christians. A lot of the things I was looking into didn't matter to me. I was being led from here. Some stuff was crap, be honest. I'm not open to everything. Come on. We're not looking for something new. We're not looking for a new way to believe. We want to blow with the wind. The word spirit, God, Allah, the creator, is spirit, ruach, or ruka in Hebrew or in Aramaic. It meant breath, wind. It's the movement of it. It's an energy. I want the energy of my life to be spirit. Light is an energy. God is light. I want the energy of my life to be light. Love, it's a fire. That word meant fire. It's an energy. It's what energizes us. Like it's a literal energy. I want that to energize me. Okay? So once that becomes your heart, you're not going to nail something down. Your goal is just to keep moving. It is movement. It's movement. It's movement in the middle of your mind, in the middle of the culture. You're being transformed. It's willingness. You're allowing it. You're allowing movement. The constructs keeps you still. You're on an adventure. You're going here and you're going there and you're seeing God in everything. The more that God begins to expand in you, you begin to see God in everything. Okay, I'm going to throw this at you and then I'm done, okay? I know a lot of you guys probably aren't that familiar with the Song of Psalms, but I knew it. So it's written as if it's Solomon and his bride. We, later as Christians, began to take it as Jesus and his church, all right? And so there's this love story going on. And then there's all kinds of other interpretations. But as I was looking into it, it's the word for Solomon that they translated as for Solomon was actually the feminine word for shalom. It never was Solomon's name in the title. It was Shaloma, is that right? It meant profound inner peace, the silence of the mind, the stillness of presence, of infinite presence. So this whole book, and I just want to encourage you guys to read it, it's about creation. It's about the masculine part of God and the feminine part of God creating. That's what the whole book's about. And it's this love story that goes like this. It's beautiful. And they pose it as a husband and his bride. This is the one, Song of Solomon 8:6. Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for your love is strong as death, jealousy as fierce as the grave. So your love is as fierce as the grave, is as relentless. It's coming for me. I don't care how many times I run. It's within every cell of my being. Eventually, I'm going to see you're coming for me. Your love, it are flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench this love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would utterly be despised. That's an English translation, obviously. So it's the divine feminine that was honored to the equal of the divine masculine. At this point, even historically, the bride and the groom, the king and the queen were of equal. Later, especially in the Jewish religion, that's why they didn't count the women and children in any of your scriptures. When they say there were 5,000, they didn't count women and children. It was already a patriarchal mindset. That's why all the scriptures are written like a father, a son, and it's down like this, okay? And women are like, what up with us? Where do we fit? Okay, culturally, we didn't fit, even though Jesus did have women disciples and it wasn't recorded, okay? So my point being, when this story was written, the husband and the wife were of equal. And the whole story, it wasn't about just a man and a woman, but because we're the essence of God, we are here to manifest all of God, okay? And within me is God, which within you is the masculine and the feminine. So let me tell you this. The feminine side of God is the part of God that is after connectivity. Union, understanding oneness. It's just a few years that we talked about that there's divinity within every cell of your being, because in the Western world, God was in the sky and it was separation, correct? With Christianity. So the Eastern thought had a more of an understanding of the feminine side of God that connected all things. We're all connected. It wasn't even a question to love my neighbor as myself, because my neighbor is myself. That's connection. When love expands in me, true love, that side of God, to even to love my enemy, it just meant the fire is already set. It's all that I am. All I know what to do. All I do is burn. If I'm the essence of God, do I have an enemy? Dale Allen Hoffman says it like this: bring those that are out of rhythm back into rhythm with you. Talk about transmutation, like talk about being in the earth to heal everything. Okay? But in the Western Christian church, the feminine was taken out. Literally in our scriptures, it was written in the feminine side of God was taken out. Okay? So this whole story of the Song of Psalms is a story like this. It's talking about creation. You're a creator. You're the essence of God. Okay? But we were formed in our culture without half of God. How do you create without two? I know that we're trying to do it medically all over the world right now. But what do you think that is? It's man trying to get back to that two are one. That there's only one, and it's a masculine and a feminine moving together. Are you guys catching me at all? So you're going to hear all kinds of things about the feminine, the return of the feminine. It's nothing about man and woman. We're here expressing it, but within men, the feminine was removed. Within women, the feminine side of God was removed. Literally, when they began to write the scriptures in 324, 327, at the Council of Nicaea, there were scriptures they wouldn't allow that were connectivity. The book of Thomas talks about the cosmic God, and it connects us way beyond what we see. Everything, it didn't happen there. It happened also in the Jewish culture and how they recorded things, and then it happened even more there. The Catholic Church, you guys, the priests and the nuns aren't allowed to get married. They made that sinful, and then you had to pay for your sins, literally financially pay. The church needs some money. If I can condemn you and I'm the one that gets to forgive you, I got some cash. What's the number one thing? Sex, baby. And that's literally what they began to create. But this is what I didn't understand, okay? And the Baptist church sure didn't understand when I moved to the South. That we were derivatives, is that the right word? we derived from, that was the mother church. When you hear people say that was the mother church, it was the mother church. So that doctrine came into all these Christian religions. And it was separation. Does that make sense? All we were Catholic in Montana. I'd never been to a Baptist church. I'd never been to, but they didn't know that we were all connected. The effects of it, the effects of the separation. So when I start thinking about that, the feminine, and I've been thinking about it for a few years now, what is the feminine side of God? What have we been missing? Have you ever felt separated from God? Did you hear that doctrine? Have you ever felt like there was something you needed to do to get back to God? Did you ever feel like God was far away and couldn't hear you? Did you have any understanding that God was like a real revelation, that God is within every cell of your being, expanding? Did you ever feel rejected or sinful or shamed? That's all a result of the separation. It didn't matter if we were raised in church or not. That has been generation after generation. It's been bred into us, you guys. Controlled by separation and shame. I heard God say about a year ago, there's no such thing as a holy war. I mean, we're not going to be people that fight over doctrine or over being right. We don't need to be right. We want to move with the spirit that's within us, the love that's expanding within us. The discovery that I'm talking about, the joy that I'm talking about for you is a discovery of you. When you discover, I've seen God, it's because you're going to be looking in the freaking mirror. Have you looked at a baby lately? Oh, you just go, oh, and we all gloat, and this baby's done nothing but be a form, a creation in my hand that I got to be a part of. And you're just like, I always look at their ears. Their ears are a little signature, and then I go look at their parents' ears and see if they have which parents' ears. People miss that part. But that's you. But in the separation, we were seeking after something we could never find because a part of God was taken out from us. So this was the lovesick bride. And I mean, I loved it. I used to love it, And then I'm like, wait a minute. Johnny's never coming home, Jesus is never coming back. This is why people get so mad. Listen, have grace on them when you're taking away their rapture. Don't talk to them like they're idiots. That's the only hope they have of connectivity. They're not experiencing it. They're already one with God. I mean, that's heartbreaking. You guys have been abandoned by a parent. Some of you have been abandoned by a loved one. Can you imagine? We thought we were abandoned by God. Yeah, or both. It's sickening. But that's literally been in our doctrine, you guys. And so what's expanding in us is it will bring all the healing. We just keep shifting out of our mind and we just become more and more aware. I have a whole lot more on the Song of Psalms, but I don't think we're ready for that. Do you want to share your stuff?
The story of my life has been defined a lot before by my relationship to the conception that I had with masculinity and my father's perception that I kind of inherited a little bit, and how much judgment I placed on femininity as a product of that negative relationship. Not specifically with my father, but just with the conception that I had of it. Because I thought I had to be something. I thought I had to be someone. I thought there were certain truths about the world, to put it that way. And holding on to those concepts very harshly put me in a lot of troubling circumstances that I didn't fully realize until I was broken out of them violently. And so the process that I've been just running through is that as a product of a catalyst of my life, my life was culminated to a point a few months ago, back in March, where I was doing everything possible in my power to be the greatest representative for my concept of masculinity that I could possibly achieve through all of my strength.
That's really big.
Through all of my strength and all of my weakness, I was like holding up this image that I had generated throughout my life, and it all fell apart. It was terrible. It just did not work out at all. Thank God. And so yeah, it fell apart. Like this event happened, and all of the circumstances of my life where I was living, my relationship with my family, all this stuff kind of just got turned on its head. And I suddenly stopped to think and realized, like, okay, maybe there's something I'm missing, you know? And so it brought me to a place, and it's kind of, you know, I think of it in the same way, because now I have a little bit more grace for people, in the same way you were just saying about people taking away their rapture, in the sense of like having something to live for, or whatever it is that they're in the image of their mind, this truth that they have that they're holding on to, and it represents the meaning and the strength and the quality of their life is like summed up in these things. And so for me, that was it for me. It was me being a good man, a good husband, a good father, you know, all these concepts that I had made up. And so when they were all kind of just shattered, because I could say that I failed at them again, which I technically did, but then I could go a step further and say maybe they weren't really the target at all.
How old are you?
I'm 23 now.
If you could figure this out at 23, you're winning.
Yeah. So through that process of just like this transformation of realizing, like, okay, this is not it. this idealism that I have about life and what I think I am and who I think I am is just like, it's not going to work out. So what does that mean? And I realized through this process, thank God for my beautiful wife, I had so much judgment about femininity, what it meant, the concept of it in my life, and even the outward expression of it, both in my relationships and in relationships that I could see that I had previously, with my mother and all this. And I start to unravel these threads about what I thought it was, why I thought it was negative or bad or wrong, or whatever terminology you'd want to use, just things to avoid. And I realized how much of it was wrapped up in the shame that I couldn't live up to these concepts was coming from. And it was this shame and guilt mentality where I could just put it off as being wrong because it didn't help me achieve this end goal that I had made up in my mind of being a certain way. And as it's kind of getting revealed to me through the process of my relationship and recognizing that, like, I'm not going to be this good husband, this good father that I had pictured. I was like, okay, well, what can I be? It was kind of like, it was a freedom to say, like, I could try something else, you know, like what do I have to lose, kind of, you know, because it's like, if this isn't going to work out, then I got to figure something out. And so that has been like the core of my everything for months now, has been that question of, what does it look like to be me? Who is me? Who is Xavier? Who is this person that I've kind of ignored for the sake of idolizing this image of a false father, this image of a false husband, or this image of a false masculinity? Who was that sacrificed to? And in the process of unveiling this aspect of myself that I didn't fully have relationship with, I legitimately began to have relationship. That was the part that was missing, is that all of the pieces of myself that I had relegated to a function of my life that I needed to operate a certain way in order to achieve an end were not in relationship. They were all serving the slave master of my masculinity. And finally, like, getting together and talking with myself, I began to understand how functionally what it meant to be in flow, what it meant to have relationship, what it meant to live in spirit with this wind that we talk about, is that it's the harmony of yourself in relationship with the divinity of creation. So that's a fancy word for basically saying that, like, I could have a conversation with my mind, with my body, and vice versa, and those things were not in conflict with one another, even though they could have disagreements.
Connectivity.
They were connected. So if my stomach, and I mean specifically like an aspect of myself, my body that's communicating in a way, because you feel hunger, I promise you do. If my stomach or an aspect of myself is in communication with my mind and it's saying, hey, I want you to do this for me, I could see that communication. I could see that connectivity. I could intercept it and I could have that relationship. And I wouldn't have to put it and relegate it in terms of like, no, you don't get this because one is greater than the other.
Yeah.
It was, hey, maybe not right now. Maybe this is what you need more. Maybe we can work this out. Or what are you thinking? Or how are you feeling? It's the unveiling of this process of giving voice, giving life to who you are. And the part of it that's so, I mean, it's just so freeing and beautiful. And I love what you said about traveling, because I lived in France for 10 years, for those that don't know, growing up. And I for whatever reason, I mean, I always kind of knew it just because I did have the capacity to intellectualize it. But it's only been now that I've fully like actually come to grips with it, in the sense of like how much I thought life and creation was a certain way. It isn't until like if you can go to a country and they have very different cultural values and their energy literally is like offensive to you, not even directly in like in the sense that you're feeling that way, but in the sense that like they're just confused by you. That will give you an insight into how hardened your mind has been programmed to think a certain way.
Well, we thought they just all need to be saved.
Yeah. We just thought we had to figure out a way to make them conform.
Make them like us.
Yeah, my father had that experience. He's such an American that he went to France to work because that's what he knew to do, and they were so flabbergasted by that idea because they just don't understand the concept of like working to live. Like that's just not a part of their language. And so
I love that.
and so yeah, I mean, the thing that, I mean, it's been such a beautiful process because it really does opens you up to developing the kind of relationships that you have with others, with yourself. And in that, here's a tool. Here's just a tool for you. If when you're going through this process, because I heard Sheila touch on it so many times, is that people deal with the shame and guilt. People deal with their mind yelling at them for various reasons because, it's used to a particular set of circumstance. Have boundaries. Have boundaries with yourself, with your relationships, with your mind. Because I've never had a healthier relationship in my life until I finally realized what was missing in mine was that we both didn't know how to communicate our boundaries. We were both thinking that by establishing a boundary, we were cutting each other off. That was what it felt like. It felt like, hey, if I set a line in the sand, that means that you can't cross it. That's not what that means. It means you respect it enough not to. Right? And in that establishment, you can have a communication that's bounded by the respect, not the division. And when you can establish that with yourself, your mind won't have to yell at you all the time because you'll have the recognition and understanding to go, hey, not right now. This actually isn't what you think it is. And we're going to set it aside right now because it's not what we need. That was the biggest thing that I learned coming out of that situation that I had a few months ago, was that my mind was so caught up with trying to make everything work that I never actually gave it a chance to do it what it was supposed to do, which is think for me. That's it.
You just shut up and think.
I just need you to like process some things intellectually and give me some ideas, and you can help with this process, but you don't need to make it happen. That's not your job. In fact, my body does a pretty good job of making things work for me, and if you're working together, then that all comes into harmony. So, boundaries. Boundaries with yourself, boundaries in your relationships, they train you in the aspects of yourself that you're not willing to have respect for. And the parts of yourself that you're not willing to have respect for is where you're missing your femininity.
I want to say this, and so you can elaborate on this. Okay, so he just gave you a key, listening to your own mind, where you can cut religion out and not blame it anymore. Because religion, the voice of religion has crossed boundaries to control you. Okay? But it's operating through your mind. So when you begin to set that boundary with your own mind, how many of you guys, your mind accuse you? Constantly. Guilt, guilt, guilt. So he's given you a key on how to cut off that voice. So go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. It's with anything. It's with anything.
Programs.
It's anything that makes you feel shame or guilt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other things involved with it, like the boundaries of your emotions and everything. But shame and guilt are particularly strong because they accuse you of being something that you're not. And more than that is that they prevent you from exploring. So even if, like you said, even if something is wrong, it doesn't matter. It's and the truth of it is, maybe this is a little much, but it's only wrong for you.
Yeah.
So try not to judge it, okay, beyond that. But yeah, the key in that process of having the boundary, again, isn't to intercept it and go, no, stop it, you're bad, mind. That's not the key. That's more shame and guilt. You're just placing it in a different place. You're just putting it off to a different place. It's going, hey, actually, that accusation, I love you for what you're trying to do, which is to protect me, and you're trying to avoid pain and further, destruction of yourself. But actually, we're going through a reformation. We're actually making changes. And I want to rearrange the furniture a little bit because I don't like it now. I'm different than who I was a month ago. So I want my house to look different. And so we're going to make some changes, and that doesn't have to be a harsh process. That isn't, I'm going to order you around. It's, hey, let's work together. Let's figure this out. We may not totally sit with this. This may not be permanent. It doesn't need to be. There are foundational elements of your life that you can stand to because they're who you are, but the things that express it are not. The expression of who you are is changing because it's present. So it's just, it's such a beautiful process, and it's hard to describe outside of this language of femininity and masculinity that we've generated. And even that kind of is so bounded up in our culture and all of that. But it really isn't gendered in any specific sense. It's just a reference to an expression, right? When we say masculine or feminine, it's only in reference to a kind of energy. So don't let shame get in the way of that energy. Don't let guilt prevent you from understanding who you are. I mean, this is my thing, and this is something me and Sheila have talked about. And since when you talk about the shortness of life, it's more to the point. It's not about I got to get everything done. There's this grand purpose that I'm going to miss out on. It's like, how much more is there of you? Yeah. How much more? Because I say this, there's so much more of me than I knew 6 months ago. There's so much more of me that I know from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And and that's for every element of my life. That's for every element of your life. Like, it's a challenging thing in the sense, and challenging directly in the sense of like, Clay, are you 100% just going to be happy with who you think you are today for the rest of your life? That's right. Like, that's the challenging aspect of it. It's like, if you can be okay with that, then you should go probably travel, because there's a humility in the process of recognizing how grand you are, that's second to nothing in the relationship that you have with yourself and the world and others, right? Like, the expansion that I've gone through in who I am has made me grow in love for my wife in a way that we couldn't have just achieved, like, through direct relationship, if that makes sense. Just going through the scripts of what we know, what we would call love, what we would call marriage, like, they wouldn't be challenged and they wouldn't grow.
And these guys are intellectuals, so they started getting counseling before you were married?
Yeah.
They're rarely purposeful, like most of us didn't think we needed any of that. That's why we married for guys. Anyway. But even in the middle of this, like, we're going after this intellectually and emotionally and stuff, then you just go. And I remember that song about being effortlessly. It just used to make me mad. Are you kidding? This is not effortlessly, because it's all these things that you had to be like God. But it is effortlessly once it.
Yeah, it is. Oh man, it's the easiest thing that I've tried in life. And I mean that in the sense of, like, there's parts of it that you go through. There's ebbs and flows. There's elements of it that are challenging, obviously. But I'm talking about that, just when you have a perspective on your life and what you're doing. I've tried a lot of things. None of them make living life any better than just wondering about who I am. And then having that expression change how I see the world, everything, creation. And that is effortless. When that gets challenged to the point where you can start dropping the associations that you have with all these concepts that you've kind of tied yourself to and the world to and your relationships to. That part of it, the part of it that you get to experience in it, is effortless. It's not this, I have to push to see my wife a better way. Like, the amount of patience that I have now, especially because, like I said, I had so much judgment on femininity and its expression. The amount of patience that I have through that process of just loving the joy of the present is that effortless space. That's that peaceful space. That's that led space where you can feel like you're not even taking action like you used to know.
It's nature.
It's nature.
So wouldn't you think, when you begin to see something in your life that's beautiful, that's God, that's you, and you acknowledge it, that's the expansion?
Yeah.
So it's just like in these old school meetings when we're like, the presence of God. We understood. You guys probably, once you could get a touch of the presence in the room, and then you kind of work with it, and it grows. So one miracle, remember, a preacher gets up and he's going to tell you about the one miracle. He's all bummed if the first guy didn't get healed, because he wants to grow your leg out first, or your back. And then it multiplies. Same way, when you begin to see and you acknowledge, because your mind's been acknowledging all along who you weren't, what the program is. As soon as you begin to acknowledge that you are the essence of God in form, like this, I literally will say it. I was going to a wedding. I wasn't excited about people I was going to see. I'm nervous about some of the triggers. I mean, my mind started putting me back into the past. And I was like, I am the essence of God in form. I am there to expand love. And I wasn't saying it from here. I would just sit there, and as soon as I acknowledged it, it starts expanding.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly getting out of that space. The part that I've been looking for is the shame, because that's all I had associated with my previous self, in the sense of like the conception of it. You may not realize that, like, because I didn't, in the sense of like how much shame is attached to the concepts that you have about yourself, because ultimately any concept that your mind comes up with as it's generated by, these elements of your life, whether it be trauma or even good things, if you had the most amazing parents in the world or whatever, and your conception for yourself is that you need to look like them, that's still attached to shame, because you will never look like them.
Yeah.
I promise.
Or Jesus.
Or Jesus. Yeah. Or any religious artifact. Yeah. You won't be, because you're greater than that. You're greater than some expression that your mind has solidified into something that you can try to be, right? And so I look for the shame now. I've looked for it, because there are times I look for embarrassment. That's the one that gets me, because that's the one I feel, is that when I feel embarrassed, I immediately know my mind is operating in shame, because it thinks that I'm doing something wrong. And as soon as I feel embarrassment, I can look at myself and I can go, what am I to be embarrassed about? This is who I am. It doesn't even matter if I made a mistake, because the point of it isn't to say that, like, oh yeah, but I'm learning. Like, that's just more shame. It's to say, yeah, that happened. That's who I am right now. That's what I just did. Okay. And so it's such a beautiful thing. It's just like the love that I have for people now, especially, is nothing like I used to. I mean, the amount of judgment that I had on people is incalculable to me now. And it's just that question of, if you're willing to ask yourself, who am I, and mean it, I promise you, your mind will argue. It'll argue first. And it's actually helpful, because then you can realize, like, where it's been defined.
Yeah.
When your mind starts making the arguments that it's formed over years, you can quickly point out, like, oh man, that was from there, that's set in there, that's, that was a product of this. Like, I don't know why I needed all of that, but I appreciate you looking out.
Yeah.
And in that dismantling, in that de-threading, it's literally, it literally is a neural network. Your mind is made up of these neurons that exist in patterns and branches. And so whenever you ask the question, your mind physically lights up in the parts that it's most strong in. The strongest neural connections in your mind will start to just fire and say, this, we have it all figured out. It's all set. Remember, look how strongly set we have our neural connections here. And you can be like, wow, that's really strong. Let's change that. Let's change that, because they're not serving me like I thought they would.
I'm going to say something. I'm going to ask you something. So this is what would irritate everybody. I don't know who, but you guys know who I was married to for 33 years, and what he valued more than anything up until the last few years of, and you probably didn't know that part, but the part with me, when someone says this is what Scripture says, after I knew here, the baby, the love, I'm like, yeah, I don't care. There's no argument then. I don't care what you think Scripture says. I don't have to prove it. I know that it can't mean that. It can't. I knew that hell couldn't be real, or what we thought it was, and a baby is created, and the trees are beautiful, and the earth is in harmony, and God is so pissed at people, he's going to make us burn forever, worse than Hitler. It's not even. I don't even have to know Scripture and verse. I don't care. It's nonsense, right? There's so many more things that it was written like this, and people want to bring you back to it. You don't even have to be a part of it, because you're learning the nature of God. Now, some of you are taught to dismantle it. But what I want you to say is how, when you were trying to understand what the feminine is in you, not just her, how you were trying to do it until it shifted.
Yeah, I mean, I was, before I finally dismantled so much of my masculinity conceptions, like when Sheila would, like, she's been talking about this for years now, and every time she talk about it, I just lose my mind, because I was always looking for something to do. I was always reaching out, like, tell me what this femininity is and how to play it. You know, like it's a game, or it's like a recipe that I can cook. And I just like, but I knew that I was missing something. It was like, first of all, because I couldn't grasp it. It was like trying to catch smoke. And second of all, which is kind of the point.
Literally.
Yeah. And secondly, because I didn't have it. I wasn't willing to detach from my concepts yet. Like, that was the biggest thing that was holding me from actually interacting with it, was just because of how much attachment I had to the conception I had of myself, right? The masculine part of it. And so what I finally realized, once I was able to let go of the part of me that was constantly vying to be better, to do something, to achieve. And the only thing that was left was the question. It was just the question, and there was no judgment attached to it. It wasn't like, I could make myself better if I do this, or I can make myself worse, or I can judge, whatever. When the question was just there of who am I, and what does it mean? What does that mean? Then I could finally feel the energy. And once I started feeling it, I actually realized how much judgment I had on it, because I started feeling it for my wife. And I realized, like, oh, I've been judging the hell out of that for a long time. I had judged the expression of emotion. I judged the expression of flow, just the flow of one's thoughts, the esoteric communication of femininity, meaning the free flow form of thinking out loud, of expressing yourself from a space that isn't something you've already thought before, right? And I
Calculated.
I would have to like go away and like he'd be like, I have to come back and think about that for a while. Or he'd be willing to like talk it through.
You guys look away from me while I flip my brother off
Oh,
on camera.
And hey, yeah, and so I realized how much judgment I had towards it, because I started feeling it from her, and I was like, "What is this?" And
He said Michael Scott.
Michael Scott.
Outside the window. You said there was nothing outside the window. You said that.
That's true.
Sure did.
You lied. So then when I finally realized the expression of feeling and emotion, and of vulnerability, that's the term I'm looking for, the expression of vulnerability meaning that I don't know how you're going to respond to this. I'm just trusting you when I say it. I was very allergic to that concept, because an expression of vulnerability is an expression of weakness in the masculine. And man, when I could be vulnerable, I realized
Masculine separate from the feminine.
separate from the feminine. Yeah, of course.
Use
Yeah,
masculinity.
Sorry,
Completed.
you're correct. Sorry, I constantly harp on you for that. Yeah, it's not about a this or that. It's about the divine relationship between the two. Is that when you can express them both. In fact, the very act of speaking is a masculine act, right? But the expression of the words, the enunciation, the flow, because I can speak like this and it would be closer to a masculine expression, but that that divinity in the two is where the trueness of yourself lies.
It's a politician that's telling you what they're going to do, but there's no heart connection.
Right.
There's no heart connection. That's what religion is. That's what happened to us generation after generation after generation. The connectivity wasn't from the heart of man. So as we're learning to live from the heart, it's both within you.
Right. Exactly. It's that. It's being able to take in
That's true power.
and to express as you are. As you are. Not as what is correct.
Yeah.
Not as what is needed. Not as that's all it's all conception, right? It's as you are right then. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. That's all it has to be. That's all that's necessary
Oh, that's necessary.
if you want to make it
You guys
masculine.
understand what he's saying? Like, this is what I'm willing to give my life for. That you being fully you is all that we need brought to the table. It's all that the earth needs. So if we can untether and help people fully be who they are, it's finished. It's not you serving my vision and be what I need you to be, or as a marriage, you serving my, right? It's you fully being.
And I would even say
excites
to
me.
say that it's like that's the call of Sheila because that's who she is. She is the key, right? She unlocks. But that may not necessarily be who you are in the sense of what you're calling directly to.
Right.
Right? You unlock people as a product of who you are, not of what you do.
Right.
So her call in the sense of like who she is pulled to be by her spirit
Yeah.
is to be that vocal part, to be that voice that
Right.
enters people's lives purposely, to be the strategy behind people unveiling themselves. You can do that too, and you will, simply by a product of being yourself.
Right.
So her being herself is that. You being yourself is not, because you're not Sheila, but you'll still have the same effect and greater of your own life because of who you are.
That's awesome.
Right? So that's why it can be tempting to think like I'm missing something, or like you feel like oh, but I'm not doing something important enough, right? Like that's the doing part of yourself that's holding on to the need for something greater, right? You're like searching for meaning in all the wrong places. But the expression of who you are is just that, an expression of who you are. That's it. Like my expression yesterday was not this all-powerful Jesus walking on water moment. It was me. That's the all-powerful part. It doesn't need to be walking on water. It can be intercepting people at that moment in time in life and just having a brush with them, right? I don't know what kind of impact I had on people yesterday. I just know that I was who I was supposed to be that day. That's all that matters, right? Yeah.
You're smiling. I got a picture of, the only reason I told it to Mike is we're recording it and I'll take little clips of this. So if you guys have something to say, I want you to say it. We're not live or anything like that. You guys ever seen when they break those lights and they drop them in like the bottom of a well? I got a picture of that's us in the earth. It's in this dark space and it's like we're being like lights. And just as you become awakened, just as you become conscious and allow that process, that the earth begins to light up. It's not even about anything you say or do. It's just you becoming.
No. The light on the hill it's not because
They're not singing. Oh, let's write the book about that. The city on the hill is not singing.
Yeah. It's purely a manifestation of energy. And that energy is a product of yourself. You. That person.
You know what is the highest vibration that there is? Which one would you guys think?
Highest vibration that there is. What is it?
I think it's love. Huh? Love. It looks like, right? Well, love is here.
Yeah.
Shame is there.
Keeps us, yeah.
But love is here. authenticity is
Yeah.
key.
Yeah.
So it's all that you have said can be reduced to one word.
Yeah.
Be authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, you just have to, but to be authentic, and that's so powerful.
It is.
And people really, you attract people when you're authentic.
Right.
You really attract people. It's like a magnet. But the thing is that to be authentic, you first have to know who you are. Because how the
Yeah.
hell am I going to be authentic if I don't know who am I?
Or if you're trying to be
I
what other
mean-
people, what you think other people want you to be.
Yes, that's not authenticity. That's totally opposed to authenticity. But when you're authentic, I mean, that's why a baby gets you so much, because they're authentic.
What are you doing?
And we lose authenticity. Yeah.
All right. I want you to. Yeah.
One thing that I'm really excited about is to hear what he's finding out at 23 years
I
of
know.
age. And, you know, in my case, it's taken me a lot of years to get to a point where he's at, and I finally felt I've been able to go beyond, because there's another thing about being authentic that happens as you get older. Because people in society start putting you in a place of what you're capable of, or what you should be doing, or what you should be thinking, or how you should be acting. And it takes the courage in you being who you believe you should be to start expressing what you really feel is coming from that creative part, which I think is what connects to that high vibration of love. So if you're operating in the present moment of knowing, this is what I'm really passionate about. You know, I really want to get out there and dance with her, the Roomba. And, you know, everybody say, oh, you're too old. You know, you don't want to mess up your back. Bullcorn. I'm not, I want to get up there and dance. But then when I dance and we dance together, her expression of femininity, and then it brings out my masculine part, it wraps so beautifully that the love just starts flowing, and everybody in the room feels it.
That's
And they're all ready to get involved. And that is the thing that I think is very contagious and is so beautiful about what he's saying, because he's learning how to be safe with someone he cares about and allow her to be authentic and him to be authentic, but explore it in an excitement. Not to explore it like, okay, watch out now, you know, let's put this, you know, restriction and this, and you know, hey, I don't want someone telling me that you were like, you know, no, it's like, Alexandria, let's go out, let's have a great time today, and if you come up with some new ideas, let's try them out, let's see where it goes. But you gotta be safe with each other, and that's what I've learned in my relationship when I met Elba. I felt very safe. I felt like I could really be who I wanted to be. Now, she might question some of those things to see if I was really connecting or whether I was just kind of losing it for a minute. But either way, I knew it was okay. So now my limit of what I think I can do at my age has gone way up there. And where my age is gonna tap out, it's not important.
Right.
What is important is that I'm present, I'm authentic, I express myself in a passionate and exciting way, and I respect everybody the same way. And I think that's what God just wants us to do. Respect everybody that's different. But if they try
Which
to...
is everybody.
Yeah. Everybody's different. So if you learn how to respect in a proper way that expresses love, then we create a safe environment. And as we create a safe environment, we don't have to worry about people robbing and stealing and crazy stuff that goes on, because everybody starts to connect.
And they heal.
And they heal.
That's all everybody's looking for.
I mean, I don't know how many people I've seen in the last few years healed that were told they were terminally gonna die.
Yeah.
They were this, they were that, you know, all these things, but they were able to tap into a source within them, which I believe is what Jesus was trying to tell everybody. It's inside, people. It's not on the outside. And you gotta watch your mind because it's been conditioned.
Yeah.
All these things around you have been conditioning you.
Right.
You know, if you have a broken will on your deal and you needed to go get food to feed your family because it's on the Sabbath, you can't do that. You gotta starve. That's BS. I mean, that really is. But that was their way of, you know, and Jesus was telling people. And, you know, he wasn't trying to tell you how to live. He just said, listen, feed your family. Don't let these guys tell you how to do it. And if they're telling you, then you need to kind of get the courage and stand up to them and let them know that you're not going to do it their way. And I think that's the lesson we're all kind of getting now, is we've got to stand up and take responsibility, sovereignty, authenticity, reality, because that's where you create. And when you create and you do it with that love and all the other good stuff we're talking about, it's powerful. The world is going to change. And I think that's what Sheila's working to do with Untethered. And I think there's a lot of people around the world that are waking up to that. And, you know, the people that want to stay in religion, you got to honor them.
Yeah.
You got to give them respect. But that doesn't mean that you got to let them control your life. So that's where the courage steps in. That's where you got to have the, and sometimes the masculine has to stem with the feminine to make sure they're protected in that process. And if you work together, and kind of like the Chinese say, the yin and the yang, it's a beautiful sphere and it's in balance. I think that's what we're working to do. We're working to balance who we really are so that not only us as adults can function properly, but the children see an example.
Right.
And they can learn and they can start creating at a younger life and not have to be putting it away and wait until they're 78 to find out that, oh, I can dance a cha-cha-cha, you know? But unfortunately, I've seen that happen. I've seen some people that
When you
wait
said
their
about-
whole life.
About getting older, I've found that I'm repulsed by the R word, retirement.
Yeah,
Because I've been kicking that word around, and I thought, testing the job market in Houston, I'll never find anything. 'Cause I'm just too old. Nobody wants to talk to you. So I got an email from a company here, and he said, "Tell me why you need to come to work for us." And the first line I put was my age. I'm 43. No.
look good for
I'm
43.
63 years old. I'm in the best health of my life. I feel like I'm 40. I run circles around these kids that I work with, and I want to work another 12, 15, 18 years. And he called me, he said, "I need to talk to you." He said, "The thing that grabbed me about that email you sent me is that you're 63. I need someone like you on my team." And so, and when you said untethered, her and I had, since 2017, it's the same vibe, it's the same frequency. And we've continued this path so that the bombs can still go off. Darren used to say that all the time. Every Sunday, every time we walk in here, a bomb goes off because of the path that we continued on. And you're talking about remembering when you got hands laid on and fell out and spoke in tongues and stuff. I remember those memories. I remember that vibe and that frequency, even though the information was probably wrong. We didn't know any better. And to me, it's like refrigerator art. Your child and your grandchild, that is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Nobody else knows what it is. I think that's the way Abba looks at us, is in our growth of development, is you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
But we are now untethered from Waco. And we're coming to
They're
Houston, y'all.
moving here.
All right.
Will you tell us what you're doing, Clay?
Like where I'm going,
Yeah, or just even how you've been.
writing. Okay, damn.
I'm just so proud of you.
All right. Okay. So didn't really realize kind of what happened to me until I was about 15 years old. And then from that point on, it's like, well, you said something that Darren said that really resonated with me. Is like there wasn't a point in my life where I didn't know about sex.
Yeah.
You know? So I turned it into a book, and I kind of put everything down, tried to be as honest as I could, and like largely from a standpoint of like, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
No matter what you're dealing with, what you're struggling with, and even going into like the physiology of like what happens in your brain when there's sexual activity, when you're aroused, or whatever the case may be, and how addicting it can be, because the dopamine levels they get to drug levels, where it's like meth, cocaine, and then orgasm, where like the dopamine levels that are released in your brain are so similar that there's a reason why people get addicted. There's a reason why, you know, like there's people who can't stop doing something, or seek out more extreme behavior. And so that was just what I wanted to put down on paper, was that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You know, you are still a child of God. What's inside of you is not changed. This is, you know, and it's something that can be overcome.
It's not who you are. He had just published it,
That was going to be my question.
and he put a different name on it because of the details, which I loved all that. And but the part that I was thinking with you now that's just so amazing is he's been doing this the last 6 months.
Yeah, right.
He's been writing. He's pretty much been locked up in his apartment, and he said it's brought him more joy than anything he's ever done. That's authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know it, you know, he's connecting, and so he's writing another one.
It's like the best part about it is like it's self-therapy. You know, it's like when you're putting stuff down and digging down, you're seeing parts of yourself that you didn't even know were there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And one of the things I said to him 2 days ago, I don't know that I did, but even in my mind, with anybody, what breaks my heart, because it's not love, is when I respond, and I'll just speak for myself, to somebody because of their behavior. You know what I'm saying? Because I do understand that your behavior is not you.
Right.
But just the same way your mind condemns you, saying your behavior's you, but your behavior's you, your mind is condemning others.
Yes.
The way you judge others is the way you're judging yourself. Anyway, so I just mentioned to him, we had coffee the other day, that, you know, that I'm just apologize, because even him not being around, my mind automatically, when we closed the doors of the building, my mind, I'm was a pastor's wife for years. You wait for people to, especially when you're married to someone that's preaching crazy stuff like that, you wait for people to separate.
Yeah.
And I just apologized to him, because just, that's not me being authentic. Because all I really ever want to do, even if I feel like somebody's separating from me, I don't want to self-protect. As soon as you begin to self-protect, you're closing in who you are. And then we don't get to experience each other anymore. So that's why it's even important as we come together. We're going to trigger each other, because we operate from different levels, but we are the same. Like, I feel like I hit I hit a goal or a home run when you tell me that. Like, it's as soon as one person begins, when he's talking and he's being authentic, like, we're winning.
And I will say quickly to that point of, it's the reason I brought it up, the boundaries of your mind, is that there is nothing quicker that will dismantle the incredible difficulty of your life faster than putting boundaries on the responsibility of your mind. The responsibility of your mind can be clearly defined by you in relationship with it. if you're letting it dictate the terms of your judgment, of your thought patterns about others, or how you lead your life, then it will continue to do so until it is told it is no longer responsible. Period. And so I've done a ton of work to figure that out, because I was led with my mind my whole life, and it's a fabulous tool that I love to death in all of its glory and beauty, but it is not responsible for who I think Clay is.
Right.
The expression of who Clay is only something I can know here.
There you go. And your mind always will try to bring it down to a form, which is behavior.
Yeah.
And none of us want to be known after our behavior, except for the self-righteous, and they don't know that they're really such, you know. Plot twist.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to see nowadays how, like, the idols of whatever ideology that you have are the ones who are committing the things that they're condemning everyone else
Yeah.
for. And it's coming out over and over and over again. Where
Yeah.
I used to have a pastor that every year would do a whole month, 4 different sermons, 4 weeks on love, sex, and marriage. Guess what? He was having an affair. Like,
She was having love, sex, and marriage.
he had all three.
Just three different
He
things.
had all three. Just not the same person.
Yeah.
But
It was the three women in the front row. Amen. I mean,
it's just so funny how you see where you define something because you want to control it. Like we
Yeah.
define God because we don't want to have something that's in control of us that we have zero control of. So we put him in a box. This is what God, and only God will do this because this is what's in the scripture, and that's it. And that's the way we control them. That's the way that you control everybody else in your life is you define them and you judge them, and then you're able to control them.
this is probably not, I don't know, but this man that we used to listen to all the time, beautiful, had a huge ministry, bus people in, feed people, found out that his wife was addicted to sex, and had no idea how many men in the church. So he's standing in front of the church when this comes out, and she's in all this therapy. He has no idea how many people. And went on a few times for years, and then he decided to stay with her and walk it through and love her, be the gospel basically, get her some help. And he was very much condemned by like other preachers and stuff. But think of the love in this man, and humiliation, and the not knowing. I mean, we're talking, he had about several thousand in his church. But I mean, he had an understanding.
Like,
It's amazing.
he we'll go out and prostitute ourselves, and he'll come out and bring us back
Get
into
you
the
back.
house.
That's right, Hosea. Yeah.
What's that movie we watched?
Redeeming Love. Yeah, that's what it was about. Anybody else have a thought that keeps coming?
That guy is a saint.
I know.
I'm just thinking, wow.
And he's crying. They interviewed him. And, I mean, because everybody knew, because he has a TV thing and stuff, I want to love like that, But here's the deal. If you want that much love, you're going to feel betrayal. Like but it's more powerful than betrayal. It's the most powerful thing. But up front, when you get in this crossroad and you want to self-protect, it feels like you're going to feel safer, but you're not. That's the illusion. Because your only safeness is in the flow of the nature of who you are. And so there's choices you have to make. And then you look back at where you died, and it is where you chose. Because you're the only one that can cut off the flow. Nobody can do it. I went through this. I told you guys this, I think, last time when I spoke. I saw how the construct shut me down, literally. But I couldn't see my part of hiding in the middle of the construct. I didn't realize that I was more powerful than the construct. And by the construct, I mean 12 elders, the whole construct of how church was back then, right?
And so I learned to hide because I'm like, they don't want any of this, right? And so I would serve and be in the background. But it wasn't until about 6 weeks ago when I'm having an encounter that I realized, though, that I couldn't just blame the construct. Because you are the most powerful thing. You are God informed. You are the essence of God. There's nothing else holding you back once you begin to deal with, like he's talking about, the government of your mind. And the way I picture it is like I told you, and everyone comes to the table if we're planning a trip. And Joni wants to go to this place next, and Alex thinks we should do this or whatever. All my family's at the table. What Joni says is valid, but we're not going to let her lead the meeting. She's not in charge. So what my mind tells me is valid, but it's not in charge. Is that my Joni crying?
No.
Okay. I mean, it does matter. It matters whoever's crying. So we want to, would a few of you guys mind praying over Clay? He's moving tomorrow morning. What time do you have to be at the airport?
8 a.m.
What time's your flight?
8 a.m.
So, no. So we'll leave at
Earlier,
6. We'll
yes.
leave at 6, yeah.
Moving to where?
Missouri. Well, for about 2 months, maybe less, I'll be training for a new job, and then they'll be sending me out to somewhere. I don't know yet, but
I like that.
Clay came, he heard the stuff that Darren was preaching, and he was speaking at a different church, had it houses. And he came and went on this Wednesday nights. Remember, we would do 2 hours of Wednesday nights. He never met Darren, and I forget why you came the day that 2 days after he passed. You thought it was going to be Don Keithley.
actually, Jason, your
Guitar player.
yeah,
Jason, yeah.
he was the security
Sostia.
guard in my building,
Okay.
and so we hadn't even really spoken about God or religion, anything like that. And he invited me, not knowing that I had previously,
Used to go.
yeah, and that I knew
Okay.
Darren, and so yeah,
So Don Keithley was supposed to speak. Darren passes away. Literally on the YouTube it says 3 days after Darren passed, I speak because I know we need to be together. And I just remember looking up and seeing Clay's face, and we're also, excuse my language, pissed that Darren's gone. We're preaching, all these stuff, but then the transformation that was happening with you was amazing, right?
that was no words. I don't even have
Because it was
words.
like, we're transcending all of it, man. It doesn't matter what any of it looks like, you guys.
I mean, I thought I was coming there for Darren. I thought
Oh,
I
you
had
thought he
a
was going to
word.
be there speaking?
Huh?
You thought he was going to be there speaking?
I thought I was coming to God's house to be mentored or whatever you want
gotcha.
to call it by Darren. I thought I had that confirmed in all these Christianese words and everything. And, then it turns out you get up with the microphone the day after, or
2 days, yeah.
was it 2 days after?
Yeah.
He passed away, and just every single word out of your mouth was like a vibration within me that was shaking something loose.
And he would say to me afterwards, I can't believe that my pastor's a woman.
That's how
I
I
get that all the time.
You get that?
I get that all the time.
I'm not trying to be anybody's pastor. Yeah, he's been with us all the way through. Don Keithley.
Don Keithley, and I'll say this real quick. Don Keithley struggled back, I want to say back in the 2000s. He struggled with which way to take that church. He had a very bright, vibrant church.
Yeah.
Full of people, went to 2 services. I'm in the band, wow, and we get paid. How about that? Anyway, he was struggling, and he brought all kind of, I've said this to him, so if he was here today, I'd still say the same thing. He brought a guy in one day that he was one of these guys that touch you on the head, and you're supposed to fall over, and the catchers were running around, and they didn't make any errors, they caught everybody. But, what got me was there was a guy who was a drummer, and he worked at a pawn shop. And he was just looking for a drummer gig on Sunday morning. he couldn't tell, that he ever opened the Bible, let alone
Pawn shop
read it.
didn't open till one.
And this guy was out there, I can't remember. But anyway, he's putting his hand on this one, hand on that, and they're falling over and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, something just don't add up here. And all of a sudden he says, who handles gold here? I've got a message, who handles gold? Well, the praise band director says, that's Trevor. He's in a pawn shop. He handles gold. And Trevor's back there. What did she just say? Walk out here. We had a little cabin for the drummer. So he walks out there. He has no idea what's going on. He walks out there. No, he has no idea. And this guy walks up to him and starts to put his hand, and I thought Trevor was going to hit him. He didn't know what this guy was going to do. And he said, just stay still. Puts his hand on his head. Trevor said, now what? Did it again. Now what? And finally, Trevor said, I ain't got time for this. He turned around, walked back, and got in the band thing. And sort of right there, Don Keefe told me, he said, after that day, I knew we were on the wrong path. No kidding. And he brought in some other guy, but he brought in Steve McVeigh. And this is important. Steve McVeigh has a Baptist church in Atlanta, Georgia, and was at about the same dilemma that Don Keefe was about where to take his church. He knew that being a Baptist church just wasn't it. Too many conflicts, too many wrong ideas and things.
Who gave you a vote?
Yes. And Don Keekley, not being of a denominational church, had this grace thing hit him. I don't know where he got it from. I'll have to ask him one day. But he talked to Steve McVeigh about it. And Steve said, I think he's got something there.
What was the name of this book?
Beyond the Angry God.
Beyond an Angry
Beyond
God.
the Angry God. Steve's written 3. They're all great. But anyway, Steve came over and talked. And this was about the time Don Keekley was going to announce at church, we're going grace, no more fire and brimstone. And I did not realize it, but about half that church left because of that. They had to have fire and brimstone. I said, these guys are idiots.
You guys are, I'll give you your fire and brimstone.
They want fire and brimstone.
It's so sad, I
One,
know.
one guy that really was a little off to begin with, he went to Don Keekley's house and wanted to fight him in the front yard over this. He did.
Condemn us, please condemn us.
Please, you had to have it.
What is the name of the syndrome when a woman's abused?
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm. The churk, we've had
But
Stockholm.
anyway, the church went to half for what it was. But I'll say this, I got an early start on the Grace movement. Because Don Keekley and me, once every 2 or 3 months, would drive to Tennessee Colony, Texas, and visit an inmate there. He was Nigerian. He had gotten convicted of his own doings and beliefs. He didn't do anything, but he listened to jailhouse lawyers and pleaded guilty. And he did not cooperate with what you need to do if you plead guilty. So they had no choice but to give him a maximum sentence, and he was in there. Had no idea why he was in there. But anyway, we went and saw it. And on the way up there and back, it's 5 or 6 hours every time we went. And we talked about all kinds of things. One of them was grace. And he let me know, he said, I'm taking this church to a grace movement. I said, explain that. Took about 20, 30 miles, one pit stop, before I finally figured it out. And I said, you just answered a lot of questions I have about what we call the Bible. Okay? That just answered all of them. Well, he got deep into grace, and a lot of people picked up on it. But they've since scattered and gone. I still run it. I ran into one Lucas the other day. If I put a good word in for this one. But after the grace thing was over, Don Keefe said, I got to retire, or do whatever he was wanting to do. This thing came along.
This thing.
This thing. I don't know what you call it right now.
None of us do.
Other the kingdom is within, sort of. That's like no Baptist thing. It makes sense to somebody that doesn't understand.
Right.
But it follows up grace
Beautiful.
beautifully. It's putting all the puzzle, pieces of the puzzle together. Now, I don't know what's past this, I'm sure there's something. But I think you gotta understand grace before you go into this. My own personal opinion about it.
When you've been raised in the Christian constructs?
Yeah, I was Southern Baptist, I mean, good gosh.
Yeah.
We couldn't have got there without it. Yeah.
No, I mean, it was Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday, and vacation Bible school, and you were there 30 minutes before the doors open.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was, I remember reading back about this, and people asked me that, you know, I was raised Southern Baptist, and I said, it didn't take long for me to figure it out. I was about 8 years old. I was in a children's choir at Emmanuel Baptist Church in Jackson, Mississippi. This is in the late 50s, a very segregated South, okay? And Southern Baptists, they're segregationists, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, they're very.
Yes,
white.
if you go back and do any research, there was one Baptist church in the country back pre-Civil War. And the Civil War, once it was obvious it was gonna break out, the Southern Baptists would not agree with the Northern Baptists about slavery. That's how the Southern Baptists came to be.
Oh, wow, all right.
Yes, that's history, that's not Al's opinion, although I'll claim it if nobody else does. But, but you go back, this fits perfectly with it. But the day I knew something was wrong, I'm 8 years old, I'm singing in the church, in the children's church choir. And we had just sang Red and Yellow, Black and White. All
Right.
precious in His sight, Jesus loves
You're like,
the
what
little
the
children.
heck?
And I look back at the back doors, and I don't know why, but I guess the qualifications for being a Southern Baptist deacon, you had to be overweight. You had to smoke cigarettes. And look like a bounce. Because at the back door, there's 4 of them standing back there, and about every 5 minutes, they'd go outside and smoke, come back in. And I asked my mother when I got home, I said, Mother, what are those 4 big, scary guys in the back for? She said, they're to make sure that people we don't want in here get in. I said, like who? I'm 8
You're
years
8
old.
years old.
I said, like who? She said, well, she didn't really want to say it.
Yeah.
I said, are you talking about somebody that's black? And she did it. She to this day, and she's still alive, to this day she will not admit to me that and answer that question.
First time, we're talking about church.
Ever since then, I've thought, these people are crazy. Jesus would not do this.
I sing the song. Yeah.
We sing the song, but you gotta be white to come in this church. And that's wrong, that's wrong. And I fast forward to tape. I moved to Houston, Texas in 1984, and I thought, I'll try this Southern Baptist church. Because I quit going. Not after when I was 8 years old, because I done got my butt whooped. Once I left my parents, you know, I just quit going. All of them the same, every one of them.
Yeah.
Came over here, went to hear John Sanyo, First Baptist. Ain't nothing different. None. They live in a much bigger city. Oh, there were a splattering of blacks there and all that, but it was the same thing.
Separation.
Separation's all it was. And I said, I ain't going here. And if it wasn't for me and my wife getting married in a church that her parents went to, I wouldn't have gotten back in church.
Yeah.
Like it all, it was just too much. I said, these guys are hypocrites. And most denominations, understand it, most denominations are. If you think about it. That's all there is to it. I can tell you one big thing why, and I'll shut up. Enjoy that one. Every one of them, they fight change.
Yeah.
Episcopalians, Presbyterians, all of them, they fight change. Yet, and I can't recite you the verse right now, but in there specifically says God does a new thing every day. They cannot deal with that verse. They cannot.
Right.
And I tell them, I said, that verse was meant for everybody. Why do you think you're excluded? You and your denomination. Because you ain't changed nothing since it started. And I deal with these guys all the time.
We're
with
fighting
high
over
school,
changing the
with their
carpet.
elders, their deacons in denominational churches.
So then you went to Keithley after that? You went to Don Keithley's after that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I went to, what was I gonna say now?
Sorry.
Anyway, yeah, see, you rock me up. I talk to these guys a lot. They're my best friends.
Yeah.
They respect me because I've really got them in a corner. You don't argue with them. That's an argument. There's a difference between a conversation, a debate, and an argument. 2 out of those 3 ain't good. You want to stay just with the conversation. When you talk with somebody on this, if you let them talk long enough, they'll conflict themselves. They will. You know, it never fails. They will. And they're so, what bothers me so much is they really believe in hell. And when they say that, I said, well, let me ask you something. Are more people going to hell than are going to heaven in your belief? Well, yeah. I said, so you just told me the devil's going to win. He's going to have more in hell than there are in heaven. The devil's going to win. I said, you really think God's going to put up with that? I said, I think he's going to fix this game. So anyway, they get awful irritated with me once I get to a point where they can't get nothing on me. Because the biggest thing, unconditional love. They do not understand that. And unconditional love comes from John 3:16. If you look at the Aramaic, it does not say what you read in your Bible. For God so loved the world. Didn't say world. The word world wasn't even a word at the time. They still thought the world was flat back then. So the word world didn't exist. Cosmos. Cosmos actually means his whole creation. Not just planets and big rocks floating around out there, one big fire, one means people. Everyone he's created and gonna create.
Everything.
Created the cosmos.
Yeah.
And the word for God so loved. If you look at that expression, that's where we get unconditional love from. It actually means a very specific, unusual love. And scholars have gone back and says all that means is it's unconditional. And that's where we get it from. So it's not something somebody made up, like much of our Bible is made up, especially the Catholics. They really wrote the book. But anyway, for God so loved the world. Unconditional, period. Ain't nothing you can do to go to hell if it exists, if you think about it. Because that'd be a condition. And I got one more I gotta say. You know it in the Bible, it says you cannot measure God's love. How do you measure something? When it stops. How much did it rain yesterday? The only way you know how much it rained is it stopped raining. You got a gauge. How long is this rope or cord? You got an end to it and a start. You can measure it.
Right.
So in order to measure something, it's got to stop. If there's a hell and God has sent people to it, and his love for those people ended, you just tried to measure God's love.
That's a good one.
That's a good
But you
point.
can use it if you want.
We'll give out Frankie.
I got more, but not tonight.
All right.
Al is seasoned.
Well, I just love you guys. We usually have a food truck. We don't have a food truck. So if you guys want to hang out, I'm happy. We can hang out. We can put a fire out there. I think it's really hot out there.
It's hot.
So, but I would love a few of us to have, let's pray for Clay before he leaves. Thank you. I love that.
Thank you.
You're giving us service next time out?
Don't put past clutch and play first.
So, yeah. If you stumble upon it, then you're not gonna know it's me.